Hey everybody, Nick here. So I bought the DJI Focus Pro LiDAR all-in-one combo. That's the version with the grip and the LiDAR and the hand unit. And I bought this with my own money. DJI has nothing to do with this video, and the opinions in here are 100% mine, means they're 100% subject to error. Watch at your own risk. But all in all, is this all-in-one combo a genius solution for cinema or a half-baked gimmick aimed at the YouTube creator crowd? Well, honestly, it's a bit of both. I'll get into that a little bit more deeply, but if you want to know the punchline, it's that I love this setup, and I've basically had it glued to my camera ever since I bought it. Warts and all, this thing works very well for me. For others, it might be a terrible solution and something you want to avoid. So let's get into that. DJI's LiDAR solution has been around for a couple of years now, and this is the second full generation of the product. The LiDAR unit began life as part of DJI's quirky but jaw-dropping Ronin 4D camera, then came downstream as an add-on to the RS3 gimbal line, and now it's finally been ported to a standalone product which can be used with or without a gimbal. But the LiDAR isn't really why I bought this thing. For me, I like the idea of a solid, budget-priced follow focus solution which could be used either on camera with the grip or off camera with the hand unit. And sure, there are other solutions for which there is a much lower price tag. So for about a third of the price of this all-in-one combo, you could buy a small rig Fizz or a Tilta Nano 2 with both the wheel and the hand grip options. I've owned both of those solutions, but each one left me wanting something a little bit more robust, a little bit more plug and play. I figured I'd give the DJI solution a try and see if the pairing was as persistent and professional as I'd come to expect from some of their other products. My thinking was that if the camera grip and the hand unit were as reliable as I'd hoped, they alone could justify the $1,900 price tag for my use cases. I'd have rock solid and reliable follow focus either on or off the camera, and that alone to me is worth the price tag. Getting an ARRI branded solution with that kind of functionality is easily 5 times more expensive than what we have here. And sure, the ARRI unit will be a little bit more industrial in comparison. Some of the DJI setup could be a little bit better, especially this hand unit, which is just a little bit plasticky, but it's mostly fine, especially this main focus wheel, which is just fantastic. And that's what I care about the most. Anyway, I bought my setup straight from DJI with a 2-week return window. I figured I would just test the beans out of it for the duration of those 2 weeks and then decide whether or not I'd keep the thing. Fortunately, it has proven to be basically what I wanted. With this setup, I get a solid side handle letting me operate the way I'd like with the camera right in front of my body, fingertip control over focus, a simple double click of the motor calibrates whatever lens is on there. It's fantastic. And the hand unit pairs instantly and consistently. Whether I'm pulling focus as a solo operator or working with a crew, I do have basically what I was looking for. But like I said in the beginning, this system isn't without its glitches. Once you get things set up, working the way you want, and you've tested everything a few times, it's generally predictable and reliable. But if you're getting in and changing settings, reversing dials, moving motors, that kind of thing, you can expect weird glitches to rear their ugly heads. For example, more than once I found that the display showing the focus position on the grip was reversed compared to the hand unit. So as one display said that the lens was pulling towards infinity, the other one indicated it was pulling towards minimum focus. This is an error. They should always show the exact same thing, regardless of your pull direction or any other settings. And there are logic errors in the system. For example, the LiDAR unit, which we'll talk about more in a moment, is able to move the focus wheel on the hand unit so that if you want to take over on the hand unit, everything is where it should be. Similarly, the hand unit will report its position back to the grip so that if you want to take over focus on the grip, everything is where it should be. The grip will report its position back to the LiDAR so that if you want the LiDAR to take over from the grip or vice versa, everything is where it should be. But the grip will not report its position back to the hand unit. So if you pull focus from the grip and then your remote focus puller takes over on the hand unit, the focus motor will whip rack focus back to wherever the last position on the hand unit was. This is dumb. Instead, the grip should be reporting its position to the hand unit, causing the wheel to move just as the wheel moves when LiDAR is focusing. And if the two are in conflict, there could either be a default of who wins that conflict or let the user decide who wins that conflict. But this is just one of a dozen tiny things I could find that were frustratingly implemented in a bad way. And that's the general theme of the product. Overall, it's fantastic. If you know its limitations and you know that your use cases are within them, it should serve you very well. I only have a limited number of lenses that I want to use it with. I know everything works generally to my liking, and I've gotten around the weird limitations that I found. In general, I'm able to use the system either myself with confidence or set it up for someone with minimal instruction and preparation. I've literally handed the unit to my 10-year-old daughter, and she was immediately and successfully pulling focus on her own face. So, like I said, I was mostly in this for the follow focus. I figured as long as it worked well, I'd likely leave the LiDAR unit in the box most of the time. But I thought, as long as I've paid for this thing, I might as well give it a shot. And holy buckets was I ever wrong. This thing is a tiny miracle. Just as with the main unit, it has a whole bunch of quirks, logic problems, and outright glitches, but despite all of them, this thing has been absolutely riveted to my camera since the moment I turned it on. The setup process is a bit delicate and requires a bit of fine-tuning. Even after that, the autofocus accuracy is very hit or miss when it comes to focusing on random objects or animals, but for people, especially faces, and especially when they are not at extreme angles to the camera, that's where the system is brilliant. And honestly, that's where I tend to live a lot as a narrative cinematographer. This thing can track a 2-year-old running at random. It can track a child on a swing set. You want to do an interview with a single subject where they're just kind of moving back and forth a bit? Bob's your uncle. On the occasions when it fails, you can either just wrestle control over it from the LiDAR unit or the hand grip, or turn off autofocus completely with a little tap of that M button. Again, the band of use cases is much more limited than what traditional phase detect autofocus can do. There are times when my mirrorless with an autofocus lens does better than the DJI Focus Pro LiDAR, but the opposite is true as well, and sometimes the LiDAR is better. It's essentially a very specific tool that can be great when the time is right. It's really something that rewards you for understanding when and how to use it. But like I said, it's basically been glued to my camera ever since I turned it on. When I'm not using the LiDAR, I'm definitely using the follow focus, and having the ability to turn that on is really helpful. Now, as to that setup process I mentioned for the LiDAR, the first thing you have to do is decide where everything's going to go. For me, that meant losing one of my custom lightweight side handles, which weigh nothing, in exchange for this grip and the battery and the electronics, which are about 2 pounds altogether. Most uses show this on the left side of the camera, but I really prefer it on the right. It's just an ergonomics thing and how I like to pull focus. But this brings up another one of those little quirks. As to the motor, you must mount it in this orientation going clockwise from the operator's perspective. If you flip the motor going the other way, the LiDAR won't work properly. DJI needs to add a setting for motor orientation because this position isn't always ideal or even possible, but we made it work, so that's cool. Next up, you have to figure out where the LiDAR unit itself goes. And you have to tell the system the exact distance from the front plane of the LiDAR to your sensor plane. I wish this could be done on a per lens basis, but it can't. Anyway, for me, I'm using it primarily with the ARL A set of lenses, which all have the exact same length. So I just decided to mount the LiDAR on top of this Tilta Mirage matte box. I just carefully drilled a couple of holes, got some longer M3 screws, and put it right here. It's not perfect, and it's not sitting perfectly horizontal. It's just like a degree or two up, but it still works just fine. It leaves me clearance for filters that can still go in the matte box behind or in front if I want. And at least the thin Tilta filters that I've been using with this system don't throw off the autofocus. That brings me to the next step, which is lens calibration. There are 2 ways to do this. There's manual setup, where you manually input the focal length of your lens, and then you manually focus on an object at a couple of different distances, and then the system interpolates and extrapolates the focus curve based on those data points. The other way is just to look up the make, model, and focal length of your lens on DJI's database and add it to your LiDAR unit's memory. I tried both ways, and when done properly, either works fine, so I ended up sticking with the automatic setup because when you do that, it adds the make and model information to the app, which is really nice. And there are a lot of lenses in the DJI database, including just about every modern prime out there. Now, a minute ago, I mentioned that glass in front of the lens, at least the thin Tilta filters, won't mess up focus calculation. But what will alter the focus is rear filtration. It changes the back focus of your lens. And I like using rear filtration, especially my little breakthrough VND over here. So I used the lens lookup tables in the DJI database, but I had to adjust them with the flange distance. DJI does allow you to tune that to get the back focus properly adjusted. But again, this is something DJI could improve by allowing you to store multiple back focus settings, either for when you want to put in a filter or take out a filter, or for cameras like the C70, C80, C400, where going from a standard ND range of 0 to 6 stops up to your extended range of 8 to 10 stops adds a layer of glass and therefore would throw off your back focus. For now, the workaround is you just have to use whatever your standard ranges are, and on something like the C70 or C80, if you get to 6 stops and you still want more ND, you have to add it in front. Anyway, as I continued to use this thing, I had to shake my head a little bit. I'm the guy who's always putting in dozens of hours of design time to make these really cool top handles and shave off every last milligram of weight from my camera, so it's easier to use in the field. And now here I am adding the DJI LiDAR, a 212 watt battery, a 4-pound lens. And it's because I love how all these things work. This setup is now over 15 pounds, as you see it here, and yet I still find myself lugging this around in the field because it is just so darn good. I am eyeballing something like the Canon C400 or the C80 with the new 35mm VCM lens as a good B cam or a good gimbal setup, because toting this thing around is becoming less and less practical. But I can't argue with the image it produces. The RA lenses are just drop dead gorgeous to me. I continue to love them more every time I use them, especially in combination with the V-Raptor X, which continues to be my favorite camera of all time. And this new focusing solution just works brilliantly. So for now, all the wait is worth it. But one more quick note about the quirks and the bugs and everything. DJI is such an interesting company. And when I say interesting, I mean both interesting as in inspires attention and interesting as in peculiar. This company's bread and butter seems to be its lower end consumer electronics. The phone gimbals, action cameras, entry-level drones, they make a zillion of them and everyone buys them. But even those entry-level devices have become extraordinarily complex, and the engineering might behind their development is astonishing. From what I heard from former DJI employees, there is an amazing R&D department at DJI where all kinds of mad scientist experiments get cooked up. Most of them never see the light of day because they're either unworkable or commercially infeasible, but once in a while, you get something like the Ronin 4D, this amazing chicken head camera with Z-axis stabilization, integrated transmission, LiDAR autofocus, 3 major innovations in a single product. The Ronin 4D is, in my opinion, the direction the industry should be heading. We need more vertical integration in the camera world. We need complete solutions. I find the Medusa of cables on most cinema rigs to be hideous and preposterous. Every camera should be trying to integrate like the Ronin 4D. And yet, the 4D and products like it carry evidence of their mad scientist origins. They often come out half-baked with all these glitches and logic errors and weird ways of working. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. It's a small market, and if they spend twice as much time making it perfect, they won't make twice as much money. So as a company, they have to direct their resources where it makes the biggest dent for them. So that's why I'm shooting on a V-Raptor and not the Ronin 4D. That camera has more limitations than I can swallow. But the Focus Pro is right up my alley. Yes, it has its limits, but I can accept them. If this product interests you, just learn what those limits are and find out if you can live with them as well. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions about the DJI Focus Pro or this setup in general. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.